I could kill them all right now without breaking a sweat, but I'm not a fucking monster, no matter how badly they all treat me. I'm above this shit. I repeat my mantra in my head again. Better to be hated and alive, better to be in pain than a murderer, better to be alone and safe. And today, Jen and I are going to be talking about the Bonds That Tie series by J Bree. And I'll go ahead and get us started because I fucking love this series so much. It's one of my favorite series. I can't even remember who was it that recommended this to us. Was it you or was it Kayla? I think it was Kayla.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it was Kayla. Like it was on my TBR for a long time, but
Yeah, mine too, because I had read the other reverse bully series by J Bree. So I've read quite a other of her stuff, but I hadn't gotten to this yet. And then Kayla started reading it. She's like, "Oh my gosh, you guys have to read this so we can talk about it."
yes, yeah.
And it has literally become one of my top 5 favorite series. So, with
Wow, I
that
didn't
being
realize it
said,
ranked that high for you.
yeah, it does. It has all of the elements that I love. It has the paranormal fantasy. It has the reverse
Mhm.
harem. It doesn't have like well, I mean, obviously we'll talk about the darkness, but it has enough darkness in there that it literally
Yeah.
like hits every single one of there's no miscommunication. I mean there's a misunderstanding, which I know it's a tight line, but like the main female character is strong, she's independent, and I love all of the main male characters too. Like they each bring something
Mhm.
different. And sometimes when you have a reverse harem or a series that has a lot of main characters, sometimes it's hard, or I would say hard. I've never had to write it, but I assume that it's quite difficult to make each of the characters stand on their own.
Yeah.
And I feel like J. Bree does an amazing job of navigating all of these characters on the page in a 6-book series. Like, it's phenomenal. So it's going to be really hard to find things that I don't like about it. Now, there are some things that okay, we'll just start with that. So I feel like there was a few things that were left unexplained, and that bothers me because if it's not being explained, then why put it in the book to begin with? So one of them, and if it got explained, I must have missed it every single time that I've read this series because I've read this series quite a bit. In book one, I'm assuming it's book one if I remember correctly, she catches Gabriel passing something to another student, and she mentions, "Oh, it could be a note, it could be money, it could be drugs." But then we never know what the hell is being passed between the 2 football players, and that just bothers me. Like, why did you put that in the story if you're not gonna clear up that little part? Again, I could be mistaken, but I read it multiple times, and I've never gotten a clear, definite response. Like, she speculates in her head, and then she's like, "Well, it's none of my business," and then she walks away, and I'm like, "Well, I need to know because you put that there for a
Right.
reason, right?" Like, so again, this is just being very nitpicky. That really bothered me, and I think it happens a couple of other times. There's one character or bad guy or villain that just completely disappears and we never hear nothing from him. So I don't know if you remember the invisible dude, the dude that kidnaps her from the hospital after her parents crash, that gets her out and
Mhm.
takes her to the resistance. They have a conversation about him like once or twice throughout the book, but we don't ever know what happens to him. If he's alive, if he's dead, he just disappears. And I just
He's
felt
the
like
one that can
that
go invisible?
he's the one that can go invisible. Yeah, we never get any. Now, obviously, the series, I don't know if you remember, the series ends of, if more resistance or more god bonds show up, then obviously we'll deal with them later. But I feel like the invisible dude was a key component of the resistance getting all of their information. And when
Yeah.
you have a key player that's still alive on the chessboard or playing field or whatever analogy you want to use, like, I just feel that it was left open ended because we got rid of all the other
Mhm.
villains that had been on the page,
Right.
and we didn't get that one. So again, I'm just being nitpicky on things that I feel like were left, I don't know, dangling with the carrot. If she wants to write
Yeah.
more in this series, oh my gosh, please do. And get these questions answered. And then I'm trying to think. I think there's an issue with the timeline, and I haven't been able to really capture it because I love this series so much. Every time I read it, I don't retain all of the things that are probably bad because I'm just like, well, I love this series. I'm going to be in denial or like ignore it or whatever. But
Right.
there's an issue, I think, with the timeline when she gets when she goes to the camps to save Griffin's sister,
Mm-hmm.
there's a part where she's talking about she's been there for weeks, but like when she comes back, or when like when we get the perspective from her bonds, it's only been like 3 or 4 days. So I
Oh,
can't really,
weird.
yeah, I can't really tell if it's really been weeks or if it's only been like 3 to 5 days, like 1 week. And that happens quite a few times throughout the series, to where like one
Oh,
part it's been days and then another part's been weeks. And I don't know if there's been a time jump from one scene to the next,
right,
it's not clear, and it doesn't really take away from the story because you're still progressing forward. It's not like you're losing anything, but that happens a
right.
few times throughout the series, and it'll be like, "Wait, what?" And then I'm like, "I don't care enough. I'm just gonna keep on reading," 'cause like, again, like,
That's fair.
it really doesn't take away, but, like, just being nitpicky on the things that I didn't like.
Yeah.
You have anything you wanna add? I feel like I know I'm dominating the conversation, sorry.
Well, I mean, it's been a while since I've read the series, so it's way more fresh in your mind than mine. The only thing that I remember not liking is I felt like the angst, tension, friction, whatever between Ollie and Knox was drug out a little too long, especially like once she had bonded with the other, like officially bonded with the other men in the group, and like they had moved past things, like the whole group was doing well and Knox was still being the way Knox is. That I remember that bothering me. I was just like, could you
Mhm.
get, and granted, he has a ton of trauma that he had to like get over, and then like abandonment issues and all of that. But like, dude, could you just move on? Like, your creatures love her. That should have been a big clue, in my opinion, that he needed to get over himself, basically.
I don't disagree. It did drag out, and I feel like it should have concluded earlier in the series, because I think it's like book 3 or 4 that they do
Yeah.
the soul bonding, but I understand the tension. I might not like it, but I understand it. I mean, can you imagine being bonded to your mom as she molests you? Like, that's he doesn't like that
Yeah.
word, and I think that, well, first off, let's talk about, like, I wasn't happy with his trauma. Like, I understand, and you learn as you go on as to why they did it, right? Because it was the resistance. They wanted him to be broken so that they could turn him. That's why they separated from his brother. Like, you get that as you progress through the story, but at the beginning, you're just like, "WTF, like, why is he being this way?" Okay, yeah, she left. She won't tell you why she left. You think that she's not powerful, but she's actually the most powerful there is. Like, I agree. Like, he should have been able to be like, "This is my bonded. It's not the same thing. My creatures, my nightmare creatures love her. I have this tether towards her. The bond inside me that he's never acknowledged to anybody else, on even his brother, is like, hey, this is who we're supposed to be." Like, there were all these positive
Right.
reinforcements. So yeah, no, I totally get it. But I do think that, or I do appreciate her doing this soul bonding, doing something different with Knox, because when you have that many mates, it gets kind of repetitive, but she threw something new. And that's another thing that I loved about her. Like,
Right.
she kept it fresh, and by doing that, he experienced her trauma and she experienced his, and then it just put them on a whole new level, which was just like super. I love Knox. Like,
Knox, I think, if I remember correctly, Knox ended up being my favorite
oh, for sure.
out of all the bonds. Like, he becomes so and like you said, it's part of that trauma bonding, but
Hmm.
like he becomes just so, for lack of a better word, it's very trite, but like he plays her hero, even though he gives her space to like take care of her own shit. But he's like,
Hmm.
you are never going to stand alone again, and I'm just like, oh God, I love you. When
Right.
book one, I couldn't stand him. I think in this series, this is probably the best written character development I think I've ever read, where you have somebody who, as the reader, you really, really, like, for me, I couldn't stand him.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you learn more about him, and as the series progresses, he develops so much, and he becomes, I mean, it was a 180 for my feelings on him. And I don't think I've ever had that experience with another character in any other book or series.
I second that. Absolutely. I agree.
The only one that comes close, and I can't remember his name, but is the dragon shifter from Emerald Lakes. He kind of had that same, like, bad guy,
Oh,
didn't want to be a part of
Sloan?
it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're right. Didn't want to be a part of it type of vibe.
Okay.
Are you
I
dying
know.
about Sully?
No. I just wanted to say, like, a disclaimer of, apparently I know the names of all the characters of the books if I really love them, but any books that I don't,
Oh, you don't love, it's just, yeah,
I
that's true.
named all
Good
of the
point.
characters in this series with no problem whatsoever when we did the recap before
Yeah.
recording. And then, Discovery, Emerald Lakes, like, best series ever.
You're
Oh,
like
Sloan, like,
on
I
it.
know who that is.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. That's so funny. Well, now I'm going to know when you're lying, when you tell me you liked something and you're like, but who was in it? I'd be like, so you didn't actually like it.
I mean,
You're just
maybe I
trying
liked the
to,
book. I didn't like the
appease me.
characters. Is
That's
that
fair.
even a thing? I think that's a thing. But yeah, that's true. Sloan really did do.
He was another one that had a lot of character development throughout the series, but I still, like, I was never at a point where I'm like, he shouldn't be in this bond, or like
Mm-hmm.
for them it's mates, like, he should not be in this group, he's a douche canoe. Where this one, I was like, what the hell is his, like, in my opinion, and I we've kind of talked about this in other discussions about this series. In my opinion, he sexually assaults Ollie in book one.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, to go from a character like that to where you end up with him at the end of the series, it was so well done.
Mm-hmm. And the way that she wrote overcoming that obstacle, right? Like, that was a
Mm-hmm.
struggle within Ollie herself. She's like, I
Right.
didn't say no, but, like, I didn't know how to
Yeah.
control my bond. Like, I'm just J Bree. Oh, fucking amazing. Like, everything I've read by her, and I've read almost all of her. I think I've read about 75% of her stuff. There's a couple of, like, duets and some standalones that I haven't done, but everything I've read by her, I've loved. Absolutely
Yeah.
100% loved.
I think
So
this
I
is the only
know,
thing I've read by her so far.
I don't know if we've spoke about this, but you don't really like the bully trope. But essentially, Knox was
No.
a bully. Were you okay with that in this?
I hated him in the first book.
Okay.
So no.
Wait, what? You hated him? When did you say this? But I mean, okay, let me rephrase. But it wasn't enough to deter you from continuing the story, right? Obviously, because
Oh
you read
no,
it. But
I mean, at no point did I want to DNF over it. But I feel like that's because it wasn't okay. So one of the biggest bully romances, and I know you hate it's not a good book, but, like, for the audience, for you to kind of get a picture of why I hate bully romance,
oh my
is,
gosh,
I
please
know,
don't.
is Corrupt by Penelope Douglas. And I hated that book. The entire book is bullying. Whereas
Yes.
with J Bree, with Bonds the Tie, you have one character that bullies her through the majority of the series, and the other characters give her a hard time at first, warranted, when they,
Mm-hmm.
until they know the full story. So it kind of, in my opinion, it balances out. Like, it's not a bully romance. You have a bully within a romance. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that does. That's a good way of putting it. And I just want to put a disclaimer on there. We love Penelope Douglas. Okay. I have a whole shelf behind me of everything. I just want
I
to
will
throw
say
that out there.
I've read several of her books, and the only one I could not stand was Corrupt. Everything else I enjoyed. So,
Which, for the audience, I've been telling her she has to get through so she can get to kill switch because that's the only one that matters because we love Damon. Anyways, that's my little soapbox. I know. One day, maybe, maybe not. I told you, you got my Voxer about the,
What bully romance you want me to read?
yeah.
You changed your mind? I can't remember what it was, but yes.
Okay. Yeah, I've changed my mind. I want you to read 2 other series by 2 different authors, not the Penelope Douglas one.
Okay.
And then I'll read whatever you want me to read. I mean, granted, I'll read almost anything, but you name it and I won't say no. Another thing that I loved about this was that fantasy element of the God Bond and like the reincarnation.
Yeah.
Like, she created this world in a very urban fantasy, but like modernized. Like, we got this backstory and history as they were learning it, and I feel like that's very
Mm-hmm.
important because sometimes if you set it up at the beginning, it can deter
Deter.
thank you, from the world,
Welcome.
or not make you really interested in it. But the way that she wove it through the plot was just phenomenal. And I don't think I have read, that's not true. I think the Guild Hunter series by Nalini Singh does really good with doing the history of the archangels and the ancients and
Yeah,
all the
and like
things.
weaving it through
The
all of
whole,
the stories. Yeah, I completely agree. Completely
yeah.
agree.
And it's not easy, but she and the covers. I normally don't like people on my covers, but I like her covers. Just throwing that out there as a
J
side
Bree
thing. Yeah,
or
J Bree.
yeah, I really like these covers too. Yeah, I agree.
And I also loved, so as the OG dark reverse harem chick of this podcast, I like when my reverse harems have multiple group scenes and not just the one-on-ones.
Yes.
She did phenomenal with the group scenes, but I also want to say she did it really well to where Ollie bonded with each of her bonds individually too.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's, I feel like that can also be hard for a reverse harem or a why choose romance, whichever terminology you want to use. And I also feel like some authors will pick one or the other. Maybe have like one group scene, maybe 2, but then they just focus on the individuality of it, which is
Right.
fine, but I feel like with her, the way that she set up the world, it was important because she was a central. And the way that she explained everything about this world, like, okay, hold on. I'm getting I'm going off on tangents. Having them be centrals mean that they had to work cohesively as a group. Now, my tangent that I stopped myself on. The powers. So apparently you can have up to 3 powers. You have your primary, a secondary, and sometimes if you're powerful enough with your primary, you have a third. So that was one aspect that I was kind of a little bit confused on. So if North and Nox both have their nightmare creatures. That's their first power, their
Yes.
primary power. But it talks about
Right.
them also having it talks about them having 3. And Nox's second power, I don't know what it is, but his third power, or unless I'm getting the order wrong, he can shadow jump. He can use his nightmare
Oh
creatures to shadow
yeah.
shift.
I forgot about that.
But I don't remember any other thing being listed on what he can do. And so North, he has his nightmare creatures, and then has the dread, which
Oh
I didn't
yeah, where it's like
understand.
mind. It's like he creates nightmares in their mind, right? He like
But I
makes
think
their
that's what it
nightmares
is.
come to
Yeah.
life.
And then his third power is that he can touch a corpse and figure out how it died.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. And then Ollie's, hers, she's supposed to have 3, but I was unclear. So the first one is that she can lock people in their brains, right? And have them live nightmares or whatever. She can do that. And I think her primary is the soul rendering, is the stripping of the souls. So maybe her third, and I just didn't understand, was her consuming the souls for power. I don't remember it ever being clear.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that part too.
And then Griffin, he is a neuro. So he can, but I think him being a neuro, that all of his powers, whatever level they are, is part of that, because like he can read minds, he can control people with their minds. And I can't remember if he can, I mean, he can do a lot with the head, with the mind. So I feel like all of his, even though it's multiple levels, it falls under the neuro. Now, Gabe, his primary was being a shifter, but or maybe his secondary is that he's a shifter and his primary is that he can shift into anything. He's not limited like some of the other shifters. I don't really know how that power works. But his god bond is the dragon and prefers the dragon, right? But then that's all that he has. So I don't know if there is actually a third one, or if the dragon is the third because it's, technically a mythological creature in modern times.
Right.
And then finally Atlas, he's the what's the word?
Like
Like he
a,
has the shield, right? Like he's
oh,
bulletproof, destruction proof. I don't know what you would call it. He's all those things. And I think his secondary is that he can expand his shield to his bond mates. And I think to other people. Yeah, and to other people too, if I remember correctly. So he can shift that to where it covers multiple people in his vicinity. And then I guess his god bond being the cleaver is his third power. He can cut people and destroy people at a distance without actually having to touch them. But again, the ranking is kind of hard on some of these
right.
because we know that it's possible, but she did that really, really great. I loved that. I don't think I've ever, that I can remember, read something to where you had levels of power, like hierarchy, right?
Yeah, I don't think I've read.
Because most of them you just have one and that's it. Unless you're a witch, but
Yeah,
we're not talking
there's
the craft.
right. There's only one other series that I can think that they have like levels of powers, but it's limited to two, and typically you only get your second based on like how something works in the world.
What series is that?
Fourth Wing.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah, so like they can
Wait.
get a second
Oh,
signet.
that's
They can get
right.
a
I totally
second
forgot about that.
signet if they're bonded to a dragon that like was also bonded to someone in their family line.
I
But
totally
that's the
forgot about that.
only, and I mean the only reason I probably even remember that is because
You just finished Iron Flame Link last week.
yeah, I just finished Iron Flame. The other one, I'm trying to think how it's not well, it's not really different powers, but it's different types of magic, not necessarily different powers. So, I don't know that that would count.
Are you talking about the High Mountain Court?
No, I don't know because that was like witch magic,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't it? Yeah,
Witch and Fae, yeah.
yeah. No, I was thinking about the Fae Isles. So I've been reading the Fae Isles
Oh,
books, and there's like that magic system gets more developed as you go.
okay. After book one.
Mm-hmm. I
Okay.
cannot wait for you to read the rest of the books. You are
I
going to
know.
love them.
I need to finish that. That's the one about pulling the color, right?
Yes.
Which is crazy in of itself. I've only ever
Yeah.
read one other book that had used color as magic, and that was Brandon Sanderson.
What about High Mountain Court? Well,
Well,
it's
High Mountain
colored.
Court,
They don't use the color. It's just
right? The
like
color's just an assigned. If you're a green
yeah,
witch,
yeah, yeah,
then you
yeah.
have
You're
green
right.
magic or
Right.
fae. I feel like there was another one that had other sets of magic, but I can't remember. Okay. So I know we talked about, well, we touched on, and I should say I touched on the group scenes and how they were hot. But let me tell you something. North and Knox using their shadows in the bedroom.
Yes. Now that I remember because I feel like if there can be a shadow kink, I have I have that kink. Like I know it's not real. Don't come at me for like having an unrealistic kink because I'm well aware. But like, yes, Yes. And any other book that does it. I could name like 3 offhand right this second, but I won't.
Really? I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
should totally name them, unless we were going to discuss them later. No, you should name them. I think you should, if you want to.
Fourth Wing. Xaden uses his shadows.
When? I don't remember that.
In Fourth Wing. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to reread that. I'm going to have to reread that before I read Iron Flame anyways.
I should have. Hold on, let me think. I think I could be wrong. Fuck. Now I'm wondering if I'm wrong. I think what's his name? Ash? Yeah, Ash in the Flesh and Fire series by JLA. Pretty sure he does.
Okay, I haven't read that.
It's fun. It's so much better than From Blood and Ash. I know. But it's so much better. I promise. I promise. Like, it's almost like a different author wrote it. Okay, and this actually might be headcanon. I don't know if I think I've just seen way too much fan art of Azrael.
Oh. Well, because we haven't got his book yet, right? But we can assume that that's going to happen because he is of the shadows. So, I'll
and
give
like
you that
I've
one.
seen, and like I'm sorry, he cannot not be kinky.
Oh yeah, it's always the quiet ones. Look at Nox.
Yes, yeah. So like, I feel like there's one more, but I can't think of it.
I think there is one more because I think I asked you. I was like, "What the heck is this trigger warning?" It was on a trigger warning. I think that I had read, and you had mentioned that was a thing, and you mentioned ACOTAR. I was like, "Oh, okay," but I can't remember the book. I'll have to like see if I can go through. But yeah, no, that was like way hot. But I do have to say that one of my favorite scenes, though, is when Nox start like nerding out when they go to the archives.
Yes.
Atlas, and he's like, "This has got to be in order. Like, what are you doing? You're an idiot. Like, follow the boxes." Like, him totally nerding out on that scene. Like, I bookmarked it because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is why Nox is my soulmate.
Yeah. I mean, any glimpse that we ever got of Nox where his shields are down, like we get to see this other side of him, I was all about. I mean, and I'm like that with any of your like big bad characters.
Do we want to rank the males or no?
I don't remember them individually. I mean, Nox is one, period. Other than that, don't remember.
Okay.
Like I remember liking Gabriel because he's like the fun and flirty, like kind of happy-go-lucky
best
guy,
friend,
right?
guy next door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Typically, that's my least favorite character because I feel like they have such little character development. Like they're like I think like the guy in Emerald Lakes, Kai. Koi.
It was Kai.
I was all over it.
We really switched today with the names.
We did. We really did. But like him, like he was that same way. Like happy-go-lucky, everything's great, you know. Yes. And I mean, they're cute and they're very great for like that relief that you need in these heavier series, but they typically end up being my least favorite character just because like they don't have a ton of development.
Yeah, I agree. So Nox would be my number 1, and then Griffin and North would be tied at 2, and then Gabe and Atlas would be tied at 3.
Okay. I feel like I would agree because Atlas is the rich kid, right? I mean, they were all like, okay. And then Griffin was like big
Nox's
Buffy
best friend.
Yeah, I liked him a lot.
Oh yeah, him in the bedroom was pretty hot too.
Yes. Okay. Yep. I totally agree with that ranking then.
Okay.
Yep.
So, are we ready to start rating?
Sure.
Okay. So for the darkness, I would say a 3 or a 4.
Really?
I mean, because we have the murder.
You would go up to 4? Yeah.
Yeah. Everything is on the page.
Yeah.
You know, the whole trauma thing with Nox in of itself, I think just her relationship with him is like a 4 by itself. But like all the fighting, while some of it is graphic, some of it's not. I mean, the death of Atlas's parents being hung, him becoming a cleaver, the dragon like eating everybody, like that. She did it so phenomenally well. You know,
yeah, she did.
And then their relationships. So they didn't start out really good, you know, because they thought she ran away. So, you know, the way that, that everybody treated her. Yeah. So, I mean, that in of it's, yeah, I'm thinking of 4. What's our scale again? I got to pull this up.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think really the only thing that's missing is, I mean, I guess technically they're all murderers, but like
Mm-hmm.
it's not it's not
Okay,
like they're
so
out. It's part
they're
of the
not
war,
doing
so I feel like
it.
it doesn't count.
Yeah, so the reason why I'm not giving it a 5 is because they don't want to be killing. They don't want to be doing it, but they have to because of the
Right.
environment. So that's why I
Yeah.
feel like 4 is a good point or
Yeah.
a good scale
Yeah.
with everything that's happening, because once the war is over, they're not going to be doing that no more, right? It's necessity.
Right.
So, but it's still
Right.
happening, right? So we have to acknowledge that, and that's why I say a 4.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm good with that.
Okay, and how do we feel about the spicy?
You're gonna remember better than me. I mean, I know there were a couple of scenes with like Knox and or North where she got tied, like quote unquote tied down, held down by the shadows, but I think that's as kinky as it got.
Yeah.
Other than group scenes, obviously, but I don't consider group scenes kinky, personally. Especially if you're talking about like a reverse harem, white shoes romance.
Okay, hold on. I got to think on that for a second and see if I agree with you or not. I don't know if I do. I think it depends on the book and how it's written.
I mean, okay, if you're talking about like the group scenes out of the Four Horsemen series by, I think it was Sarah Bailey,
Yeah.
those were kinky AF.
Yeah, they were kinky. I will give you
So
that.
like, so that's what I think about. Like, if we're talking about kinky group scenes, that's kinky. Where like this, I don't. I mean, it's just a bunch of people having sex.
I mean, I don't know. Griffin prepping Ollie for Knox to come have sex with her for the first time was pretty kinky. Okay. I mean, nothing like, but not like,
I don't remember that. What?
yeah.
What?
So the bonds were like, either you guys do this or we're going to take over and we're going to make you bond. And so when they come back from a fighting scene or whatever, she goes to take a shower and then Griffin comes and then Griffin kind of like warms her up or whatever. And then Knox comes in and like fucks her from behind, and that's how they bond. It was pretty hot. Like nothing like, there was like no scene or like no toys, but like I thought it was pretty kinky.
I mean, okay.
I would, a 3 or a 4, I would think, for spicy.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree that you would land between those two. Yeah, I
But we
mean,
need to pick which one. So hold on. I pulled it up. So 3 is making us sweat and 4 is smutty. It
would
wouldn't
you
be 5
consider the
because it wasn't
series?
Kiki.
Yeah, would you consider the series smutty? I feel like
The
there's just so much.
series, no.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm struck. Like, there was such a good plot and story and character
Uh-huh.
development. Like, I don't like. I would not read this story, or I wouldn't read the series for smut. I would read this series for the story.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not reading the series for the sex, so I can go with a 3 because of that. I'm reading it because it's such a fucking phenomenal story, and I love the magic system, and I love the bonds, and like all the things.
Yeah.
I'm not, the sex is just a bonus in this
Right.
series.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. So 3.
Okay. And then overall rating.
5 stars.
Agreed. 5 stars,
Yeah.
100%.
I loved the series. I'm not a person that rereads series typically, and I'm sure I will reread that series at some point because I did really, really love it. And I want the physical books also, by the way, so I can sit down and read
They're on
them.
my list. But I do have the special editions from the Arcane Society
Listen, I don't even want to talk about all your
subscription.
special editions. I can't even handle it. I'm
They're
so mad.
so beautiful. I cannot wait for books 3 and 6 to show up. They're supposed to be hopefully shipping soon, but I need the print copies from, J Bree's version, because those are just beautiful in of themselves
Yeah,
too.
they
Like,
are.
I absolutely love the series. 5 stars overall.
Yeah.
So we decided, listeners, to do something a little bit different because it was 6 books and there was a lot of quotes. A lot.
So
We're going
many.
to end this episode with an additional quote just because there were so many to choose from and these were our top 2 picks. So, or I should say we're done, right? Is there anything else?
No, I think we're good.
Our closing quote is, recovery isn't about wiping the board clean. Recovery is learning how to function around all the scars and open wounds inside of us. Yeah?
Yep. Yeah, I feel like that's such a good quote. I feel like that's where they all ended up.
Okay, readers, and where does the darkness rate with you? Thank you for joining us on the journey into the shadows of love, where dark romance stories come to light.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Bones of the Story as much as we did. If you did, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us.
And to stay updated on all things dark romance, follow us on social media. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
We'd also love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, ideas, or even your own dark romance stories with us. Drop us a line at bonesofthestory@gmail.com.
Remember, our next tantalizing episode is just around the corner, so keep your hearts open and your senses sharp.
Until then, embrace the darkness and let the stories continue to stir your deepest desires.
This is Misty
And Jenn,
signing off
from Bones of the Story.